So I got this knife yesterday because when I was in Florida, I got my knife confiscated by the TSA because I had to go through. It's a really beautiful knife. You should check this out. Because I had to go through security quickly because I got the airport late. And just you want to make sure you didn't miss your flight. And anyway, knife ends up in my bag. Can't check my bag before the gate. Have to check my bag at the gate. Lose my knife. My buck 1-1-10 Hunter. 110 Hunter. Beautiful knife. Had it since I was like 12. Love that knife, but lost it. And the knife I had before that was an M15, I think, Kit Carson CRKT. Beautiful knife. Got taken by the Chinese Communist Party. But anywho, I didn't have a knife. So I went to go get this puppy because every man needs a knife. Just carry it. I mean, it makes you more deadly. It's useful for so many things. And you should just have one. And I believe I should have one. And I didn't have one, so I went and got one. And I was thinking while I was getting one how amazing it is that I can just go and get this knife, like this metal that was mined in another country, and how miraculous this is. Like if I was suddenly transported to 1400, I would be unable to get this knife. Because in 1400, the means for me to get this knife wouldn't exist. Maybe this knife would be a birthday present to royalty or something. I mean, this hinge wouldn't exist. But you even think about the Amazon basin, how they don't have any real rock tools in the Amazon basin because there aren't any rocks. And then they living that way with no rocks, using sticks for tools, live. And I have my fancy stainless steel industrial made knife that's just miraculous. I can just buy this for $54. And it'll last me a lifetime, provided I don't get it taken by some annoying government agency. And that's just so crazy to me. And computers, for instance, this camera that I'm filming this on. So I take information that I gathered through my years of experience through the internet, and then I turn that information to videos, and I then film those videos with cameras made with chips made in Taiwan, with rare earth elements mined in Africa, designed by people in Germany or people in the United States, with software written by you see how it all comes together. This whole world has to collaborate together to produce this camera I'm filming this video on. And because we live in such a wealthy society that can produce so much, almost everyone can have these cameras. Everyone has iPhones. So now everyone in the world basically can be reached digitally. They can consume information digitally that wasn't available. I mean, way back in the 1400s or so, if you wanted information, you had to go read a handwritten book. And to get a book, you'd have to have a monk write down the whole book. And people didn't even know how to read or write back then. So even finding someone who could handwrite you a book was very, very rare. And knowledge had to be transmitted on horseback. So it was just very hard to get specialized knowledge. And knowledge of metallurgy, knowledge of resources, knowledge of medicine, knowledge of plants, knowledge of anything. But now knowledge is abundant. We can just consume knowledge, and that knowledge allows someone to share information about where metal is located, to go mine the metal, produce the metal cheaply. And just all this sharing of information and collaboration of human beings has one moment. I'm going long with this one.
But you're rambling. You're not bringing enough energy to it.
It's fine though. I'm just trying to get into a flow. So ultimately, all these people working together to create this technology, it has a really amazing effect. And the effect is that each of us individually becomes more powerful. Whereas before, people couldn't travel that far outside their home village or leave their hometown, communicate with people. You used to have to pay a lot of money to call long distance. Now we can reach people long distance for free, basically on our phones instantaneously. Even the fact that we can communicate digitally, and that it makes more resources available. A great example is the internet and eBay. So before eBay was created, people had all this stuff that was just sitting around their house that they didn't have any use for, and they couldn't really sell it. And then eBay comes along, and now all this stuff that was previously worthless from an economic standpoint, from a utilitarian standpoint, from a utility use standpoint, is now all useful. So in some sense, everyone becomes richer because all this unused resources can now be utilized. In the same way, technology allowing for the widespread distribution and collection and organization of information makes everyone richer because now everyone can benefit from everyone else's knowledge and everyone else's skills. And if you don't have a certain skill set that you need to do something, you can contact someone with that skill set. If you don't even know where to begin, you can find people on YouTube telling you where to begin. If you're depressed, you can find and this can actually be a detriment because you can find lots of conflicting information, not know what to do with it. But if you're depressed, you can find tons of resources on how to not be depressed. I mean, there's the mainstream medical approaches, there's holistic approaches, there's naturopathic approaches, there's a ton of approaches. And you can find people who have tried all these approaches and listen to what they have to say. And then now, because you can solve your health problem, you don't have to die. And now your productive labor can exist and then be shared on a global market. And it's really beautiful, actually, because this whole globalized market thing, it creates stress for people because they're like, well, now I have to compete with all these people they didn't previously have to compete with. But really, I think that it's going to be the main driver of global peace in the coming years to come. Because ultimately, we need to coexist with people on a planet. We need to agree with them on things. We need to come to consensus. And as human beings, we can come to consensus by one of two ways, basically. Either we can find mutual benefit by working together, or we can say, at least that person's not worth messing with. And usually that has to result from some sort of bloody war. So ultimately, I think that one of the main drivers of peace, at the same time as we have like North Korea building bombs, China doing whatever the CCP is doing, that's nefarious. You have the United States occupying countries around the world. We have Hamas doing their thing, Israel doing their thing. At the same time, we have people like me, people like you, hopefully, but many people on the internet creating global ties of business and of partnership. And these ties ultimately, I believe, are going to bring us all together. They're going to boost economic development across countries and across the world. They're going to allow people to share ideas that have never been shared before, utilize resources that have never been utilized. And I think that we'll be able to accomplish far more as human beings than we ever thought possible because of this. In the same way that like windsurfing didn't exist because people couldn't really conceive of that. Wingsuiting, all these sorts of things that exist. Like there's tons of interesting ways of being, like crop rotation, regenerative agriculture, all these ways of being that we just haven't thought of yet, that haven't been explored yet because there weren't enough people to think of them. People weren't thinking in those ways. People weren't sharing resources, collaborating, communicating. People weren't sitting up for hours and hours on the internet thinking, where can I uniquely add value to this equation? And the fact the internet's created so many millionaires and billionaires is really a testament to how much it's helped people and how many people have been able to look at the internet and say, wow, this is some unique area I can fit myself in the world and cause a lot of good to happen. And now that it's extrapolating out, now these wealthy people who made their money with the internet are going off creating new industries. These industries have new problems, creating new jobs, and just really like making everyone more powerful. Like this knife is such a beautiful example of that, because this knife, which would have been the tool of royalty hundreds of years ago, is now something I can just buy for like $54 at Walmart. And there's tons of them. And if society collapsed, if global trade stopped happening, this would go away. The cars would go away. The chips that make these computers possible would go away. The cheap prices created by people being able to communicate and collaborate over the internet, all this stuff would go away if people stopped aspiring to a better future, believing in a better future, working toward that better future. And if that dream of a better future stopped motivating us to work together, then we couldn't produce these things that allow us to live the way we live. Because it's not inevitable that human beings produce computers and make these knives. It's not inevitable that car just exists and drives past me, run by inconceivable technology. It's not inevitable that I have a device in my hand that can contact anyone on the planet and summon me almost any information or order things. That's crazy, and this is incredible. If this technology were to go away, and we would be unable to reproduce this technology. Let's say some crazy thing happened. Let's say some totalitarian government comes in and,
Can we wrap this up, dude?
yeah, kills all the creative smart people. And now there's no creative smart people to do any of this stuff, and the technology dies away and the knowledge dies away. How long would it be before we created this stuff again? How long would that be? I mean, society progresses through exceptional individuals, and it takes an exceptional individual. No, it takes an exceptional society to allow an exceptional individual to flourish, because the default in society is that you just kill exceptional individuals because they're annoying. They're trying to do everything differently. Just kill them. It's less than 1% of the population. Who cares? But we live in a society that doesn't do that. We live in a weirdly tolerant society that tolerates differences of opinions, differences of ideas. And that makes it possible for this to exist, which makes it possible for all this to exist. And we should all just be very, very grateful of that and not take this for granted and use these resources we have to share the information we have and build a better world, because it's not inevitable that the world keeps on getting better. It's by choice. Done.